Welcome to Business Unmuted, the business discussion programme for the north of England, which is also available on all good podcast sites. Of course it is. As the more observant of you may have noticed, I'm not Graham Robb. I'm Caroline Theobald, standing in for him. After the weekend's news, those of you who know him probably know that he's going to be rather busy this week. I love doing this. I love standing in for Graham. I'm always grateful for the invitation, particularly today, actually. I've got a fantastic panel here in the studio. Kevin Gaskell, who's joining us on screen from some unknown city or a hotel, but this city picture was much better. He's known as being the youngest MD of Porsche, and he then went on to transform Porsche, but also did exactly the same, I think, Kevin, for BMW. You're known as a business fixer. You've gone on to advise high growth companies, and I also know that you're a great advocate of inspirational business leaders. The difference between success and world class, great to world class. I think that's the crux of your latest book, published in 2017. Also with me, Tim Bailey, head of the practice for Excite Architecture, as the name suggests, an exciting growth architectural practice based in Newcastle, but serving the whole of the North East. The chair of Constructing Excellence in the North East, as people probably know, the one sector that came bouncing out of the pandemic. And a man who makes change happen positively. And I know this, I can say it because it happens in his day job, and I know it's happening at Constructing Excellence, which is one of the many things he chairs. Finally, last but no means least, Peter Snaith, a partner at Womble Bond Dickinson, and actually representing, I think you'd have the lead for the Tees Valley for WBH, don't you? He's also an ex-chemical sector chap, worked for ICI for a bit, absolutely passionate about manufacturing and the role that manufacturing can play and should be playing in contributing to economic growth. So, thinking about economic growth, let's think about the interesting stats that David Smith was talking about in the Sunday Times at the weekend. Office for National Statistics. I can't get them all off the top of my head, but I think they may be on screen, but I'm not sure we can see that here in the studio. But basically, gentlemen, if you look here, London and South East at the top, North East right the way at the bottom, showing very, very poor economic growth from 2010 to 2021, last quarter of 2021. There's been some flack about that on Twitter, led by Andrew Sissons, particularly from Nesta and other economists, say that actually if you look at jobs and productivity as well, the picture isn't quite as bad as that, but actually there's still an awful lot of levelling up needs to be done. And so I'd be really interested, gentlemen, in your views about the role that business can play in that important levelling up agenda. And I think probably discussion today will take that as a starting point. Think about the role of business in economic growth, how businesses can grow, particularly small businesses, because I know, Kevin, one of your specialities is using the techniques that some big businesses grow and putting them into small businesses. I think I remember correctly, Peter, that not only in your very busy day job do you do what you do, but you actually advise high growth clients. So you'll have a view on that as well. And of course, Tim is his own high growth business, as well as being the chair of Constructing North East. And I think let's look as well at the role that inward investment can play. The other thing I do want to talk about is the Lloyd's survey that some of you may have seen that came out yesterday about women entrepreneurs. And it's on the autocue, thank you so much. Women entrepreneurs and the role of women in business in the North East. Because nearly half of all women-owned businesses in the North Eastern Yorkshire are concerned about not having equal opportunities to grow. And we can talk about that, but actually, again, there's been quite a lot of coverage about that in the press. Because if you've only got half of a possible workforce being able to grow, again, that's going to have quite an effect on economic growth. And then finally, is there another thing that we're going to talk about? Elsewhere, it says here on my auto cue. No, don't know. Right. Right, now we're moving on to the construction, the Purchasing Managers Index. So today, the figures out today, the Construction Purchasing Managers Index hit a 4-month low, falling to 56.4 from 58.2 in April. I talked earlier about the fact that construction was the only sector to come bouncing out of the pandemic. Tim, you're a man in construction. You're the chair of Constructing Excellence North East. What's ganning on?
Yeah, well, a significant amount, Caroline, as you might have gathered from other snippets of information and news that have been coming out over the last month or two. But I think the significant challenges that are reflected in those figures are around supply chain issues, war, difficulty with imports, difficulty with manufacture, skill shortage within supply chain, particularly manufacturing base, have all eventually caught up with those figures. And so the difficulty is twofold. We've got lack of product to sell into the marketplace, at the same time as inflation and other economic financial pressures are forcing people to make sure that they're buying just enough, make sure that they're putting off purchases until the very last moment, and trying to reflect what are long lead-in times. It's a very significantly longer lead-in times than previously into construction sites in budgeting. So what you've got in that particular data, which is reflecting purchasing, is a slowing down of the capacity which the construction industry is dealing with. That's reflected in other areas of the industry, but maybe we'll cover those in other points.
It absolutely is, because I know it's affecting all those supply chain issues are big, they're writ large, but 50%, anything above 50% is still growth. So the sector itself is still booming, is still doing well? Well,
there's a very interesting possible explanation for that in the context of a general challenge and the feeling on the ground that is shared by many colleagues around slowing of construction productivity overall. But that's because where at Constructing Excellence we cover the professional cohort, which is at the start of that process, right through to contractors and supply chain people who are delivering the actual product on site. And so across that piece you've got client contact changing in profile, scale of project changing in profile, some very difficult conversations around program, the length of time that the project might take, and that won't have hit the site end of that process in the earlier parts of, or the late part of last year and the early parts of this year. That's one part of an explanation. I think the other bit is that overall the industry is trying to realign itself. It's having an internal conversation about how efficient it is. It's a very fragmented industry. It's well recognized. It operates on extraordinarily low margins almost across the piece. Therefore, volume is key to survival and offering a good product to client base. So any minutiae in data which is dropping, even if overall it still appears to grow, that drop is affecting margins and it's affecting productivity. So people are doing a tightening exercise right around their piece, which probably is reflected in those figures, but also in the attitudes on the ground overall.
That's interesting. And of course, the thing perhaps you haven't talked about, but I mentioned the P word, and the world of work is changing. And if you're, we talked a little bit, don't we, Peter, when you first arrived, about, you were moving your office space into the Helix in Newcastle in 2020, and said, how on earth in 2020 do we know how many people we're going to have actually working here in Absolutely. 2022?
Yeah, and it's just, it's impossible to predict what we're going to be doing in 6 months' time. I think we are getting to that point now where people are yearning to be back in, but equally we can't afford to force it, because when your point about the women in the workforce, actually it's transformed the job market for our teams. We've got many young parents, not just mothers, who actually couldn't be doing their job if they couldn't do it from home, but actually being able to spend some of that time at home and some of that time in the office means that actually they don't need to think about sort of stopping work or going down to part-time. The flexibility that they now have has, as I say, transformed things.
And it's sort of work is, or buildings are community, aren't they? Offices are community. They're not just about bricks and mortar. They're about far more than
Absolutely.
that.
Because actually, on the productivity side, our productivity has increased over the last year, or however long it's been. I think it's a blur now how long it's been. But actually, for lawyers to be sat at desks, actually doing that at home, as long as you've got a good desk, and we moved all of our 1,000 people in the UK out in the space of a week or two. Initially, they were working on ironing boards and just making do, but actually, very quickly, they were working from full workstations, and now you get your good work done at home. I can get a lot more work done at home than I can in the office, but you need the mix. So you go into the new office. We won't have offices in the cellular offices in the traditional sense. We'll have neighbourhoods and collaboration spaces that we can work together with, so we can fire ideas off each other, but then go home and to actually get things done, do that somewhere else.
It's music to architect ears, but I'm not coming to you again, Tim. I'm going actually to Kevin, because actually you're a business fixer, but business has changed. It's not all based in businesses anymore. It's changed its shape. How have you managed to? I'm sure you're having to advise people in that changing environment, Kevin.
Yeah, I mean, I'm listening to Peter and Tim and agreeing with both of them. I absolutely believe that in order to build an effective team, and it's a team which drive the company, there needs to be opportunity for people to mix and share ideas and discuss. And I don't think, here am I talking to you through a computer, but I don't think that it has the same opportunity of innovation and agility when we're speaking through a computer than we do when we're in a room and we're bouncing ideas around. But I also believe that having some quiet space to get on and work is helpful. But of course, that can only happen in certain companies. Today I'm chairman of 7 businesses. 3 of those kind of can work on a hybrid basis, but the others are, we're manufacturing companies, and you can't build fiber networks from your home. You have to go and lay the cable. So I think there's a lot of gross simplification spoken about home working, and for sure the ability to concentrate in certain tasks is very welcome, but in other businesses it's not possible. And for me, we take a case by case view, but we always have. This is the thing. I think I've worked from home for about 15 years. But my office is at home, but I spend time in the businesses. So I think, yes, the pandemic has caused us to rethink, and it's certainly accelerated a number of businesses into better utilization of technology, but it's not the only answer. So if you're asking me how I build companies, we do it by making sure we have a clarity of view of where we're taking that business. And to do that, I need to get everybody together, and really that's what we do.
Thank you for that. And actually talk about some of your, or 3 of your companies that you chair being manufacturing businesses. Again, that's a wonderful segue to Peter, because, to where we are now, we're in the heart of manufacturing country in England, in the northeast. Manufacturing is really important, isn't it, Peter?
Yes, obviously. Why is it important? And it's sort of... You say that manufacturing is important to the northeast, and we think, well, because we're stereotyped in the northeast with manufacturing, but actually it's not. Manufacturing is spread out across the UK, but actually it's condensed in pockets in the northeast, and I think that's what helps you to realise just how sort of vital those clusters are. And in this region, we've got real strength in those clusters, and it's the ability to sort of for businesses to work together to share best practice. But they create good long-term jobs, well-paid jobs, and increasingly science-based jobs and tech-based jobs. So we need to sort of transform. We need to transform the older businesses by strapping on the next generation of business, of people coming into manufacturing, need to realise that it's not just blue overalls and dirty jobs. Actually, increasing productivity means putting sensors onto manufacturing facilities to increase productivity, reduce downtime, and that's almost gamifying manufacturing. So I think the future of manufacturing, in terms of the science-based side of things and the tech-based side of things, there's another renaissance just around the corner, and I don't think everyone realises that. We shouldn't see manufacturing as the old traditional, but there is, because there's still a space for that, and we need the heavy industry, which we've got on Teesside, and we've got the infrastructure for it. But actually, very close alongside that are these tech-based businesses, which can actually make a difference.
And are beginning to make a big difference. I know that you're on the leadership team of NEPIC, the processing cluster here, but there's also Fujifilm Diosynth
Biotechnologies, yes, that's right.
Biotechnology, and actually, we're not just here, are we? The North East is in a global marketplace, and you've up to some quite interesting stuff, I think, with Nashville. Are you in that space?
That's right, yes. I've spent the last 2 days just with investment teams from Nashville and international trade teams from Nashville. There's an enormous synergy between the northeast of England and the southeast of the United States. We've got fantastic infrastructure, fantastic industry, a great hard work ethic, but actually we're massively unappreciated in terms of our potential and a low cost base in which to grow. But Nashville has been in the top 10 growth cities across the US for the last 10 years, and they've been over. One of my partners in the global business team in the States, who's based in Nashville. He's the honorary consul for Nashville, and he wants to build a bridge between Nashville and the northeast of England. So we've had them over at the Helix in Newcastle, had them at CPI and Teesside, and then this afternoon we were down at Nexus in Leeds, just making them realise just what, from a healthcare, med tech, technology and advanced manufacturing hotbed we are here, and they're really excited by the sort of what they've seen, and they want to encourage businesses. We want to encourage businesses over there, but we can give them the sort of businesses in the northeast a means to connect with the opportunities over there, because, as I say, the synergies are very stark.
And that's just thinking back to those stats that David was talking about at the weekend, when talking gloom and doom, this is really exciting. This is a northeast that's got a real future. And I know that trying to think, North Star Venture are just beginning to launching a fund which is called Venture North, which is actually focusing in on some of these technologies, society tech, because we have got that that manufacturing bedrock, but it's been reimagined and re-engineered to actually take advantage of new technology. And that's happening in construction. I was just thinking about it, isn't it, Tim, as well, because of the is it BI? I know it's letters, but the built environment is also benefiting enormously from improvements in technology.
Are you thinking about NBS?
BIM, I think I'm thinking.
BIM, BIM, yeah. Building Information Management.
Information Management.
Yeah. Well, BIM is a very interesting arena. Starts with a pencil, really, and builds up into some of the highest tech that you can imagine applied to construction. We do have a centre of excellence in the northeast, based around Teesside and Newcastle. There's a lot of research goes into what that space means. Applying it, much more difficult, and there's a step change required across both client briefs and requirements into the industry, just as much as there is within the industry's take-up of what is available. The company I mentioned, NBS, which is based in Newcastle as well, but global, and around product specification and construction specification, they have demonstrated just how powerful that space can be to bring cost, quality, and programming into the same space and relate it to a model emerging on a screen, built by people who know what they're doing, engineers and architects and so on, with data sets internally to it that drive that space. But going back to my point about fragmented industry, the same industry has two people driving around in a van with a big hammer, who will knock you up a fence or do this thing with your house or do whatever it is, and that's all part of the industry. And unfortunately, it's driven heavily by cost. and I think we'd all be in the same space that, when it comes to fairly major capital expenditure, whether it be in a business or at home, you're often tempted by the lowest price, and it's very important as a message from us, and Constructing Excellence is sort of centering on this a little bit, is around about the value decision. So we have a campaign called One Voice, which is centered around climate, value, innovation and people. It's 4 key aspects of what we're talking about. And sort of trying to say it's a whole journey, not a price point that you're interested in. And that whole journey involves skills development at the outset and driving people into green technologies and new digital technologies, both within construction and externally to that, through better management of the environment, which has an impact on climate, we hope, or a positive impact on climate, through to the operational part of what we do in the built environment, where it's extraordinarily important, if we're going to meet carbon targets, to take out much of the sort of energy-hungry components in buildings that we've relied on in the past, in the 20th century for certain.
And funnily enough, that connects back to what Kevin was talking about that whole journey. Regardless of what sector you are in, this is whole journey. It's about a culture. It's about a company that is led by that is inspired, but then growth comes from either comes down from the bottom and then comes up. But it's everybody on the journey. Is that right, Kevin?
Yeah, absolutely. I've worked all over the UK. I've spent 8 years working in Switzerland. I've run businesses in 31 countries, mostly remotely. And so I'm not a great believer that there's a regional issue or there's a geographical issue or a gender issue. I think people are people and opportunities are opportunities. And my job as a business leader is to make sure that any business I'm involved in, wherever it may be, has clarity of vision about where we're going, what success looks like, and then everybody in the organization is fully aware of how they play a part in that. And I call that inspirational leadership. It's about inspiring people so that they want to make a difference. And in my career of 30 years now, I've been a CEO or chairman. That's where I see the greatest opportunity. And I think, we can talk about regional differences. I'm a northerner, so I do get frustrated by a lot of the London-centric conversations that go on. But I equally believe that with appropriate leadership, great businesses and therefore economic wealth can be built anywhere in any country. You've got to have the resource to do it, but then it's about leadership to make it happen.
And is that business leadership, political leadership, or both?
Well, look, the politicians, to my mind, need to understand business probably more than they do. And I do get frustrated, and it's not because I want to protect the oil companies or anything like that, but windfall tax it's not part of a long-term strategy. It's taking advantage of something that's happening at the moment. And we all know that the oil companies have suddenly had a lucky break and they made a lot of money, but a couple of years ago they were losing a lot of money. So I try to look at it in the round. I don't try and defend anybody. What I want to see from government is a long-term strategy. Brexit was about building an agile, innovative, creative country outside the strictures, as they were described, of the EU. Well, then let's get on with it. But I've not heard a lot from government of any denomination about how to make that happen. As a leader of a business, my job is to create a culture and identify an opportunity within the economy as it exists to get ahead of my competitors, to build something that is innovative, where we can move quickly. And I still think I've got a business now based in the north, which was struggling 5 years ago, I think, when I joined it, 6 years ago. And in those 6 years, we've built the business, we've increased the scale of the business by 40 times. And we're still producing the same product as we were. The difference now is the team are really engaged. We know exactly where we're going. And so we go out and we make it happen. And that's that's what I do, and that's what I want to see business leaders do. And I'd just like to have an open conversation with government to say, help us to create the opportunity for that to happen.
Get rid of some of the red tape and let business flourish.
Oh, absolutely. Get rid of a lot of the red tape.
So, nobody likes being in a place where they feel as if they're held back. This region, actually, I'm not going to do the north-south divide, because actually I think there are businesses here who are doing extraordinary things and making a real difference. But it's actually sort of thinking about how can we encourage more of them? I'm thinking Tim's got a successful SME, an architectural practice. There are lots of women in business who are finding that there are barriers holding them back. How can we create more? How can we tell people actually to take the plunge and to grow? Because it is difficult, particularly because we're working in a global marketplace where there's war, where there's shortages, supply chain issues, and all of the rest. And you probably know, Kevin, Peter, and Tim, that actually this region isn't awfully good at starting and growing businesses.
Well, I think that's the first. That's where I would start, because the 90% of employees in this country are employed by SMEs. Mm-hmm. It's not the big businesses that employ 90% of the country's population. And so small, agile businesses are critically important. And just speaking about my own company for a minute, I've started an enterprise I've called Smarter Britain. And our objective is to support 1,000 new companies in 1,000 days. It's as simple as that. I want to help young people and people who may have been made redundant or stepped away or want something different to do, to help them to create new businesses, because that to me will be the lifeblood of the UK economy. It's those new businesses coming through. And so through Smarter Britain, we are helping businesses to do this. And it's not a new thing. I was part of a similar project in South Africa 6, 7, 8 years ago, and so far we've created about 8,000 new entrepreneurs by doing exactly the same thing. It's about supporting them, encouraging them, providing them with tools and resources. And it's not all about money. It's not about funding. It's about taking the fear out of starting a new enterprise, helping people to actually get going. And so for me, I want government help to encourage young people to get onto that opportunity to create their own business. You can't find a job, or you don't want a job, work for yourself, and we'll help you to do it.
And Charles Handy said that a long time ago, don't get a job, get a customer. And I've always thought what a great way to live your life, get a customer. So just thinking about that, Smarter Business, is it a platform?
Smarter Britain.
Smarter Britain. Is it for any particular sector, or is it for anybody who wants to start a business?
It's for anybody. I mean, look, it started by me driving to Manchester through some poor areas, looking at kids on the side of the road, literally, and thinking, where are they going to go and find a career? Well, how can I help them to build their own career? And so we came up with the concept of Smarter Britain. And as I said, we'd already built it in South Africa. It's been running for a number of years. So we're transposing it into this country and adapting it to our economy. But it's for anybody who feels they might want to start their own business, or just to encourage them to look at that as an opportunity.
Fantastic, thank you. So we have Smarter Britain. You're a lawyer. Lawyers help. Well, debatable subject this, but you work a lot with high growth SMEs.
Yes.
What are they saying? What's the temperature out there? Are they finding it difficult to operate? Do they want to do more? Could there be more help?
It's a mixed picture, but I think there's a lot of optimism amongst the SME community. I think we need to take barriers out of their way and to make things to de-risk things and make things as simple as possible. We act for some of the very large organisations, but we need to make those services available to the small businesses. It was mentioned the other day that Sage in the 1980s was a 2-person business, but now it's clearly not, and we need to be able to support that. That's down to some people taking risks, but it's then helping people take calculated risks. So the professional services businesses and the other organisations in this region need to support our own to help take businesses internationally, for example, and to help people things fall into the too difficult box in terms of innovation that involves patents. That's very expensive and high risk, but it doesn't need to be. I think we need to just have the basic building blocks so that people can just set off on the right path with a toolkit, if nothing else, to help them to do that, and then things will grow and grow. It's not all, as Kevin mentioned, it's not all about funding. Although the funding for internationalisation funds, for example, they're coming to an end at the end of this year, but there needs to be some sort of visibility. Not huge sums of money because there's enough the government's paying out already, but there needs to be visibility about what support there will be in the longer term, so people can plan for the longer term and plan for the bumps in the road.
And not just visibility, but also just easier to get it, because it's sort of sometimes a bit like wading through a forest but without a machete, and there's things springing up all over the place, but you don't know actually what's going to help you get through.
Yes, but then there's I mentioned the internationalisation fund. That's spent up in large parts of the country, but there's still lots of money available in the northeast. That's a bit of a worrying statistic of the fact that it's available. It's free money. It's up to 50% of £18,000 matched funding for anything to help your business, take your business abroad, international, and we haven't used that. So that's we need to make that available and get businesses to tap into it.
That's good. And a word from you. I've just been told we need to wind it up from over there. My men in the black room. So final word from you, Tim. You run a successful business. What more would help you?
Well, one of the key things, picking up on a point not yet quite made yet, but very relevant, is about the people coming through. So changing the entrepreneurial spirit to positive. One of the things I chair, as you mentioned at the outset, is the Northern School of Art. So education, where young people need to be switched on to the idea of entrepreneurship so that they can have that mindset through not only their education, but when they're looking into the job market. And an awful lot of that is in the creative sector, including film and television, new TV studios in Hartlepool that are set to change the scope of what capability in the Teesside. And they're not often introduced to the idea that they could be their own player. They could drive a difference under their own steam with their creativity. And so I would like to spend time and see efforts put into changing that mindset at that early age, even school age. Because
if you can't see it, you can't be it. And that has to start, I think, when you're about 7. So from 7 onwards, it's, yes, you can get excited about something. If you get excited about it, you can be it. And there are the people there from Smarter Britain or other programmes that you can go global. You can be who you want to be. And deliver prosperity for this region and buck those trends. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we are being told that is enough. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Graham will be back, I'm quite sure, in the hot seat next week. Thank you for joining me. It is available if you would like to see it on all good podcasts. Gents, I hope you got something out of sharing your time with us this afternoon. It was very nice to have you all. And back to you, studio.